Years ago, I tagged along with a few other people to an abandoned mental ward in another state. We got a hotel room the night before and got up crazy early to get in when it was still dark. It was an amazing location, huge corridors and hundreds of rooms and lots of windows for sunlight to get in, and for once, almost no graffiti of any kind. A great find for anyone who likes urban decay. I let the others do their thing and take off on my own to explore some areas that I'd never have seen if we had stuck together. I get up to the top floor and I'm just taking the place in, and I look out the large windows towards the inner courtyard that the hospital's built around. The layout of the building is sort of like a big letter U. My eyes stop on something on top of a set of utility poles right outside of the windows that are connected together by a platform where all of the utilities split out to other locations. It takes my brain a few long seconds to realize that I'm staring at a dead person upside down about 20 feet in the air, and that person is dead. It took me what seemed like several minutes to accept that I wasn't having a bad dream and to pull out my phone and get the others upstairs with me. There was some debate on how to handle our exit and when to call the authorities. We decided to get outside of the perimeter and make the call. We didn't know our way around, of course, and the door we left through led us out into the courtyard, and we had to walk right under the body. We called 911 and waited for them to arrive. Then we gave our statements and headed home. There was a story a few days later in a paper local to the hospital, and it turns out the man had been most likely fencing copper from the electrical platform that hadn't realized the rest of the grid on the campus was still active. He was upside down because he was strapped to the unit with some gear he had brought. The sad thing was, and this is just my own observation, that there were no cars anywhere where the man had died. I would imagine if you were doing something like he was doing, that you would have parked your car very close since you'd be loaded down with gear and cable. I could easily be wrong, but my take is that someone was with him, watched him die, then got back in their car and went home and told no one in order to save their own ass. 5 of my friends and I went and explored an abandoned military hospital on the outskirts of town. We had a great time and explored the place from top to bottom. Tons of dope graffiti, lots of old furniture, nothing creepy because most of the actual hospital stuff had been torn down long ago. After about an hour, we were all hanging out in the reception area when we heard what sounded like faint footsteps above us. We have run into many homeless people before on our exploration, so it wasn't really anything to be worried about, but we were creeped out because we had searched the place top to bottom and there was no signs of anyone living there, nor did we see anyone. Under the assumption this creepy sound is coming from a homeless person, we yell out that we didn't mean to invade their space and that we would be on our way. That's when something upstairs let out a high-pitched, blood-curdling scream that sent chills down my spine just thinking of it now. Paralyzed by fear for a moment, we all just looked at each other in utter terror. Someone then began stomping heavily on the ceiling, and it seemed like the whole thing was going to fucking collapse. We immediately sprinted out of the hospital, screaming the entire time, not stopping till we'd cleared the grounds. When we had finally caught our breath and looked back at the building, we saw someone in one of the second-story windows slowly waving to us. Based off the size of the silhouette, it looked like an extremely skinny woman. So, in hindsight, it was probably just a meth head trying to scare us away. This happened about 3 years ago, and we haven't gone back since. In my hometown, there was an old insane complex spread out through multiple buildings, not one giant building like most people think of. Most of it had been torn down or repurposed over the years. However, one of the buildings that remained looked to be an old radio room or something. As I was walking around this small room, I noticed stairs that led below. The basement of the building was flooded around 2 feet high. Around this time, I remembered they built maintenance tunnels throughout the complex, and though this would be a good entrance, I left and came back with boots and waders. When I got down to the basement, there was just trash floating everywhere, but the entrance to the tunnels was bricked off. Then I tripped on something as I stopped to look around and take it in. I realized the bottom was filled with various animal parts, bones, and etc. Then I looked down, and there was a dog that was obviously killed by human hands. He was cut open just laying there on the shallow side, and maybe an inch or two of water. I apparently stumbled on some deranged person's animal sacrifice room or some shit. I fucking got out of there really fast. A week later, someone set the building on fire. Me and my friends went out almost every night in the summer holidays looking for abandoned places. One night we found an old morgue, the next a hospital, another an old factory-looking warehouse, and the last, what I can only call a village hall. The morgue was actually the least scary because there were dick drawings all over the place and sexual comments everywhere, but it was still interesting. The factory was huge, massive. We still go back there every now and then and try to venture to the top, but as it's completely rusted and falling apart, we wimp out. And the last, which was in fact 5 minutes from my house, was the creepiest. Never have I been so shocked in my life. We found out about it from my brother. He told us there was an abandoned house down the road. At first, of course, we didn't believe him. He calls any house with a broken window abandoned, but he kept going on about it, and so soon enough, we went and checked it out for ourselves. Parked outside it, and it was overgrown and just dark. The door leading to the side alleyway was open, so we crept down there, which led to an unlocked back door, which inside led to a tiny opening of 2 more doors. I was in the lead, so I made the choice to go to the left-hand side door closest to me. The door was open, but not open enough to actually see inside. So I tried to look through the gap to see if I could see anything inside, keeping in mind it was pitch black, right? My head is right next to the crack in the door when I have no idea what caused it. The door opened the smallest bit, and I could easily see inside, but the light was on. I got the fuck out of there and just told everyone to run. At that moment in my head, all I could imagine was some guy on the other side of the door doing the exact same thing as me. Every thought in my head was horrible at that moment. Looking back, it may have been the wind, as we actually went back there a few weeks later, but no one was inside. The place was dead, yet the electricity was somehow still running. It still creeps me out to this day. This took place in Pennhurst in Spring City, Pennsylvania, around June of 2013 if I remember correctly. There are a series of tunnels and subtunnels that connect all the buildings together underground. We were standing in the tunnel entrance, which used to be a cafeteria which was labeled dietary. Now the basement had double doors and one of them was bolted shut, while the other was wide open. The basement was lit from foundation windows to near daylight. The 3 of us were facing each other in a sort of triangle, talking 3 feet to the left of this door. Now, besides our headlamps, the only light is from this room, and the tunnels are total darkness. Out of the corner of my eye, the room next to me appears to go dark, and I go silent. Now, what the scariest part of all of this was that I quickly realized that all of my friends went silent too. I turned my head and there was a black silhouette vaguely resembling a person in the doorway, except larger and more distorted than any normal human I've ever seen before, almost encompassing the entire doorway. As I sit here and look at whatever this is, my headlamp is completely absorbed by it and I can see the daylight from the basement behind it. As I turned my head to basically say what the fuck, my friends had already started running as they also saw it. The energy in the moment just seemed to completely leave me, and my legs felt so rubbery. The one friend who had a direct view of it said it just kind of materialized in the doorway. I ran until I couldn't anymore. I looked right at this thing from feet away and my light did nothing.